How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopian. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the This is the final Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be out you.
Won't anybody help us? What are we running for? When there's nowhere we can run to anymore. We can't afford to be innocent. Stand up and face the enemy. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible. And with the power of conviction, there is no sacrifice. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible.
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
Can we grow up a little bit and
Alt
not
Girl
be
sent
retarded?
$200. Have you
Please.
seen the work of Karlyn Borysenko? Anti-commie cult leader and is obsessed with looking at what actual far-left communists are talking about and organizing today, infiltrating them. They infiltrated the universities, schools, media. She has the receipts to back it up. Primary source evidence. Infestation is dire and she calls Republicans idiots eating slop. Agree.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, oh, I know Karlyn B. She's solid. She's funny. I
The
like
great
her.
noticer sent $200.
Literally.
So
not
it's,
Ian.
it's not a because I haven't dangled my junk into the combat zone on purpose to get some camera footage, but that's the big part of what's the
Is
problem.
that what you call reporting?
Go
and live
under if
streaming?
you're going to do it.
Yeah,
go
seriously.
undercover. Otherwise, you're wearing a hunk of meat in a lion's den. Nick Shirley, I love you. Take care of yourself, man. Karlyn Borysenko went undercover. Do stuff like that. Like if you want to expose this thing, don't pariah, please.
But Ian, here's and I agree with you to an extent.
If you take your top lip and connect it to your bottom lip, you will shut the fuck up. Sometimes shutting the fuck up is the best thing you can do.
It's going to be one of those days. It's going to be one of those days where people who have not interacted with the type of content I'm going to show you today, this is literally going to be a shut the fuck up day. And I say that with all due respect and with, hopefully a little bit of a sense of humor, because what we are going to cover today on the channel is probably literally going to blow some people's minds. That's how bad it is. And I'm fairly certain I can say that confidently because I want everyone in the chat who has read the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto with me before. I want only if you have done this with me before, because we have covered this document on the channel before. We've done this before. If you have watched or covered the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto with me, please share your opinion of the type of content that we are about to consume today, because there are a lot of new people on the channel who have never read the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. There are a lot of new people on the channel who have never interacted with real queer Marxism propaganda. You think the clickbait bullshit that you guys have seen on Twitter is crazy? You guys think libs of TikTok is the worst thing ever and the worst thing the far left is doing? No. 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 The shit I'm going to show you today is worse than anything that you've ever seen on any conservative media outlet. It is worse than any pundit has ever shown you before. It is worse than any clickbait that you have ever seen, I promise you. And it's going to be deceptive because there are going to be some people today that are like, this is boring. This is stupid. Why are we doing this? We need to pay those people no mind. Because today, we are returning to the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. The Counter-Revolutionary Book Club is a little podcast I have, and I do mean little because I haven't really tended to it the way that I should. But the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club, you can find it over on my Substack. That is Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. And if you go ahead and click on this book club link in the corner, you will find the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. And there are about 14 episodes of it. And you can actually subscribe to this as a podcast on Apple and Spotify if you feel so inclined, or you can subscribe through the Substack. You can actually get the podcast right through the Substack. And the thing of it is, the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club is a podcast where we together as a group read the furthest left, most dystopian propaganda, and we talk about it. And we haven't done Counter-Revolutionary Book Club in a while. In an ideal world, I would like to do this all the time. And we're going to do a little test case today to see if this is something that people are into. Because one of the reasons I kind of put a little pause on the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club is honestly, it was driving down the viewership of the channel. And for me, that's really disappointing, if I'm honest, because this shit, this is the craziest shit you're ever going to find. This is the most dystopian communist propaganda on the internet. Yo, Ben coming in with a couple channel memberships. Hey, thanks, Ben, for that super chat. Guys, as a reminder, if you can't find the channel membership gift button because you're watching on your iPhone or something, please feel free to send in a super chat. It's $5 per channel membership. So if you want to donate 2 channel memberships like Ben just did, you can send in a $10 super chat, and I will count that as channel memberships if you tell me to do that. And that's just a little workaround because we do have a channel membership goal today. Today is a class stream. So we have a channel membership goal. Bro, this is why people need to like the video. This is why people need to click on things. I explain this to people all the time. It's the algorithm, baby. If you don't click on stuff, it's not going to show it to you anymore. Hey, Naruto, thanks so much for the super chat. Candace Owens severely dragged Ben Shapiro on Monday's episode and restarted Bride of Charlie yesterday. So it might be time to go back to watching her tomorrow. Yeah, we'll see how I feel about that. Maybe that is a good idea, Naruto. I do appreciate the super chat and the heads up. So, Guys, we do have a channel membership goal today because we're doing more of a class day. I'm going to try to teach you something today. I hope I'm going to teach you something that you don't know today, because we are going to do a deep dive into one of the most dystopian documents on the far left. It will be shocking to some of you. It won't be shocking to others who've been listening to what I've been saying. The conservative gaslighting online is insufferable. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it is. Oh yeah, it is. And you guys are about to find out what queer Marxists actually believe directly from their mouth. So when I tell you the goal of queer Marxism is to abolish capitalism via abolishing normativity, the cultural norms that uphold capitalist society, and they do that by attacking the gender binary, arguing to abolish gender, and therefore also attacking the nuclear family, which is the social reproduction of capitalist values within our society. They want to abolish gender, abolish the nuclear family as a way of abolishing normativity, the cultural norms that uphold capitalism, in order to abolish and overthrow the capitalist system and implement a Marxist utopia. Queer Marxism, when we're talking about the term capitalism, when the left wants to abolish and overthrow capitalism, what that means is it means private property ownership. But what people need to understand is this is not just a question of economics. Economics is but one part of what leftists care about when they're talking about capitalism. Cultural capitalism, building the social systems that uphold and reinforce a capitalist society, they need to disrupt those two in order to overthrow the capitalist system that they truly believe we are all oppressed by. Does everyone understand what I'm saying? This is going to be important background for what we're going to do today with reading the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. This is going to be specifically about the aspect of queer Marxism, which is about abolishing all gender. And if you guys haven't believed me that this is their goal, that it has nothing to do with sexualizing children. In fact, they rarely talk about children except when they talk about the abolition of parental rights, because they believe parental rights are the ownership of children as private property. It was never about sexualizing the children. That is a different and far separate problem. What the left is trying to do in schools with queering kids and grooming children is teaching them to believe that gender does not exist, that men and women do not exist, that gender is fluid, that you can change your gender as easy as changing an outfit. That's what Drag Queen Story Hour is all about. It is about teaching kids that you can change your gender as easy as you change your outfit. You put on some sparkles and all of a sudden you're a girl. That is with the goal of abolishing the socially constructed, what they believe are the socially constructed categories of gender. They believe that men and women are just social constructs. They're made up categories that we are placed in by capitalism based on our reproductive ability. Men, or people who cannot have children, go into the workplace where they have all the money and all the power. Women, the people, the birthing people, stay in the home where they are oppressed to do the unpaid labor of having and raising the next generation of proletarian workers in the nuclear family, thus recreating and reproducing capitalism via social reproduction theory in order to continue to perpetuate the capitalist system by providing the new set of workers via the children to the oppressed proletarian underclass that perpetuates capitalism. Everyone got that? Everyone got that? You guys all understand? One in the chat if you understand what I just said. Two in the chat if you're like, Karlyn, that was way too fast and way too complicated for me. Just curious. Yo, James in with the 10 channel memberships. W's to James in the chat. Really appreciate that, bro. Look at that. Look at that. Like, just like that, we're already getting to our goal. Guys, we do only have a goal of 50 today because it is going to be an abbreviated stream today. Why is it an abbreviated stream, you ask? Because, my friends, we are doing another spy stream today. In about an hour and maybe 15 minutes or so, we are going to go into Spy Stream. Spy Stream is going to be a supporter exclusive stream for today, and I think perpetually moving forward for reasons that I will explain later. But we are doing a supporter exclusive Spy Stream today. That means we are going inside, not one, but two. We're doing another back-to-back double feature. We are going inside not one, but two live leftist organizing calls around about 6:45 p.m. tonight. If you want to join us, one of the best ways to do it is to become a channel member or to be gifted a channel membership by a very generous supporter like Malcolm, giving out 10 more W's to Malcolm in the chat. You rock, bro. Thank you so much. See, look at that, guys. We've already got like 20 new channel members just on this stream, almost halfway to our goal. So the reason we're doing a little bit of a smaller goal today is we are going to be having a shorter stream. So I'm going to take that into consideration on this. We are almost halfway to our channel membership goal already. And if you get a channel membership, either you already have one or you get one today, you are welcome to join us for Spy Stream later tonight. And the way you find that information for people who are new is you go, that's not what I wanted to pull up. Ah, damn it. There we go. How you find that is you go over to my channel homepage, you click on the post tab, and when you are a YouTube channel member, you will find the Spy Stream information in the very top of the post tab. It will be the very, 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 very first thing you see. Thank you so much for the super chat number 2. YouTube recently announced that they're bringing back DMs, so you might get flooded with conservative. Oh, great. That's nice. Thank you. Good information. Warning received. So I do hope you guys will come and join us for Spy Stream tonight. Hear directly from the left what they have to say themselves. Hey, John, thank you for either the Cash App or the Venmo, and I will add that to the goal. He says we're donating through Cash App or Venmo now to get channel memberships. You know what? Hey, I'll accept it. If you want to donate for Cash App or Venmo, you can find the information there. I'm not going to turn that away. We'll add that to our total. Thank you so much, John. Really do appreciate it. You know, I do prefer when people give channel memberships directly to people in the community because then we bring more people into Spy Stream. But listen, man, if you want to donate via other means and designate those donations to contribute to the goal, I'm not going to say no. Beggars can't be choosers and all that. And so I really do appreciate it, guys. I do want to just talk about something really quick before we get started. This is super quick, but I think very necessary. I think very, very necessary. Can we just talk about what a fucking goddess Megyn Kelly is? I'm in love. I'm in love. I like in general, I'm terrified of lesbians because lesbians always fall in love with me and they always want to move in with me and all that stuff. And they all think I'm a lesbian. I'm like, no. The thought of eating pussy terrifies me. No, that's not, no, it's not going to happen. Sorry. But like Megyn Kelly, I'm in love with her. I think she's fucking awesome. I love the way she is not backing down from anyone. And I love that she was all over Twitter the other day telling Mark Levin he has a micro penis. It was one of the greatest things that's ever happened. I was like, yes, this is the appropriate level that we need to sink to, Megyn. It's time to stop taking the fucking high road. Megyn Kelly's exactly right. Mark Levin has a micro penis. It is obvious to anyone who is paying attention. He just exudes micro penis energy. She is totally right. Facts don't care about your feelings. And the fact that she was all over Twitter saying Mark Levin had a micro penis, I was just like, oh! And then all of the men came out and was like, how dare you get to that lewd? And all the men who are always hurling insults about people's weight or people's looks or people's tits or like whatever the fuck, all these men who are always hurling personal insults, all of a sudden were like, Megyn, how dare you say he has a micro penis? Do you know how badly I have been insulted by fucking accounts from Israel over and over and over and over and over again? They Photoshop pictures of me, making me look more fat than I am. They've done all this fucking crazy shit to me, all attacking my looks all the time. But no, Megyn Kelly says that Mark Levin has a micro penis, and how dare you, madam? How dare you? And then Megyn Kelly, like the goddess that she is, just doubled the fuck down.
They go low. When they go low, we go micro penis. When they go low, we go micro penis. When they go low, we go micro penis.
Yeah.
When they go low, we go micro penis.
Yeah. It's exactly the right thing to do, Megyn. It's exactly the right thing to do. I could not love Megyn Kelly more. And I just have to say, I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. Do you guys want to know a little secret? You guys can't tell anyone. Don't spread this around the internet, okay? This is just between you guys and me. Do you want to know a little secret? Okay, check this out. So when I posted this video clip on Twitter, this asshole who obviously has a micro penis, like anyone who is offended at a woman saying Mark Levin has a micro penis, obviously is having some insecurities of their own, because if you didn't have a micro penis, what the fuck would there to be offended by? And so this guy who I've never heard of, and he only has like 300 followers or something, says, "This is where we part ways. Toodles." And I responded, LOL, okay, micro penis. And here's the secret. Here's the secret. Megyn Kelly liked that. Megyn Kelly liked my response to that asshole telling him he had a micro penis. The perfect woman does exist. And it's Megyn Kelly. And I will die on this hill. This is one of the funniest things that's ever happened. And she can do no wrong. She can do no wrong. I don't even care if she never interviews me about the left, although she totally should. Megyn Kelly and I would have a great conversation about the radical revolutionary left in America. But bro, like, I don't even care if that never happens. Megyn Kelly can do no wrong. She is a goddess. We stand Megyn Kelly. We are Megyn Kelly respecters. It's perfect. She's perfect. It's perfect. Anyway. That's all I wanted to say about that. That's all I wanted to say about that. Okay, you guys ready to get into the serious shit now? You guys ready to hunker down and do some serious dystopian analysis for real? One in the chat if you are ready to dig into one of the most dystopian documents that has inspired queer Marxism. This is the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. One in the chat if you're ready to take this little adventure into far left dystopian queer Marxism, anarchy, insanity. Two in the chat if you're too much of a pussy and you should show yourself out now, because like this is like big kid stuff, guys. This is like for the people who you watch the really grotesque horror movies just because you want to see how really grotesque it can get. That and I understand this because I'm one of you. I love those horror movies. I will sit there and watch every single ridiculous horror movie just to see how ridiculous and what the visceral reaction is, except Sallow. We are never watching Sallow. Sallow is a horrible fucking movie. Liz Wheeler did a 10-minute rant on micropenis. Well, you know, Liz Wheeler needs to lighten the fuck up. Anyway, and thanks to Rutu for the super chat. Anyway, we're digging into it, guys. You are going on this journey for me. You are locked into the ride. Now, no complaining, no whining. This is a time for us to take this seriously and learn. And I'm going to show you one of the most dystopian documents that is inspiring real leftist activism today. Let's dig in to the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. And let me get my reader up here so I don't have to read anything. I will post this link in the chat. Actually, let me do this. We are reading this. And I will post the link in case you guys want to follow along. And remember, we are going to try to meet our channel membership goal today. We're almost halfway there. So if you guys want to show your appreciation for the fact that I'm taking the time to teach this to you when no one else on the internet does this shit, please feel free to send in some channel memberships, invite some more people into Spy Stream a little bit later on today, and everyone will be happy. Everyone will be happy. All right, let's get this party started.
The Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. Death to gender. Freedom to the queers, but gender dies through eating its own tail.
Hang on. Apologies. I was trying to be fancy and make it bigger so that we could all see it, and I fucked it up. Hang on. Okay. Again, please.
Death to gender. Freedom to the queers, but gender dies through eating its own tail. Gender is dying already. Its death rattle is upon us, but it still is time to save itself. It is on us to hurry it along to its final end, to speed it on, to make it accelerate.
So I think they're being pretty clear at the very beginning. They think gender as a concept is dying, and they seek to accelerate that death because one of the goals of queer Marxism is to abolish the gender binary, abolish the categories of men and women. They believe gender equity will only be achieved when gender is completely abolished so that everyone is a they, them. That is what non-binary means. Non-binary literally means no binary. So when everyone is a they, them, gender equity will be achieved and we will all be we will all be equitable. We will all be on the same level. No gender categories, no gender hierarchy. And they are trying to accelerate the abolition or the death of gender to make everyone a they, them.
Gender, its function and origins, material base. Before we can discuss what is to be done, we need to know what is. And as always, the place to start when understanding a social system is its material base. The material relations that produce the social system provide us with the best grounding for understanding the social system itself. Material relations are relations of production. That is, they are the way we relate to the various ways we labor and produce things. All of society is based upon these relations of production, and they produce all of our social systems. Gender is no different. So where does gender's material...
Okay, so I want to be really clear about this. I explained this earlier. To the left, capitalism is not just an economic model, it is also a cultural model. W's to Sith over on Rumble, gifting 5 channel memberships over on Rumble, bro. Thanks so much for gifting on Rumble. Really appreciate it. Maybe someday Rumble will integrate with StreamYard so we can see all their chats over here. That would be really great. Anyway, I explained earlier, so the left believes that capitalism is not just an economic model, capitalism is a cultural model. And so what they're talking about here is the production of cultural norms, the reproduction of cultural norms or social systems or ways that we socially relate to each other in order to create culture. And they're saying that here. All of society is based upon the relations of production, and they produce all of our social systems. Gender is no different. Gender is a social system that has been produced by the culture in the society, the capitalist culture.
So where does gender's material base lie? Gender is produced primarily by the division of reproductive labor. Reproductive labor is any labor that helps to produce the next generation, including sex, birth, childcare, and homemaking. And gender is defined by how this labor is divided up, with the different genders being distinct classes which are expected to perform specific sorts of tasks regarding reproductive labor.
So non-birthing people are called men. They are in the workplace where they have all the power and all the money. Birthing people are women who are relegated to the household where they do the unpaid labor of having and raising the children who are solely there to be fed into the workforce as the next generation of proletarian labor that will be oppressed under capitalism. Everyone understand? I'm going to go rather quick, guys, but please, if you have a question, if something I'm saying is confusing, I really do mean this. I'm not going to yell at you if you ask an honest question. Ask the question, but I'm going to go relatively fast unless someone says that they have a question. I will slow down and explain things though.
With the different genders being distinct classes which are expected to perform specific sorts of tasks regarding reproductive labor. The way gender differs between cultures is determined by how these tasks are divvied up between the genders. The particular characteristics that this produces are what is known as the superstructure. So, while gender is produced by this material base, it also involves an amalgamation of various stereotypes, ways of dress, formal speech, etc. in its superstructure which differ how we experience our gender. And this applies to all cultures. The Bugis people of Indonesia, rather than the 2 genders of our society, have 5 genders in total. Calabai and Kalai people have biological characteristics that have been gendered as male and female respectively. But they...
Well, no. You misunderstand. They're not. So Myriad says, amazing. They don't want gender, but they can't help but classify based on biological capabilities. What they're saying, Myriad, is that capitalism categorized people based on their biological capabilities. They do not want to categorize people. They don't want any categories to exist. The ultimate goal of queer Marxism, and we'll get into this when we cover nihilism, which we'll do at some point after this because you have to read this first. So nihilism is about the elimination of all identity categories, related to anything. So they do not want people categorized based on reproductive ability. Their argument is that capitalism is doing that. Capitalism creates all categories. Capitalism creates all hierarchies via the categories. Anytime there's categories, there's a hierarchy, and hierarchies create all oppression.
But they adopt the reproductive labor tasks typically assigned to Mak and Rai, roughly equivalent to women.
Hang on. We got a question here. You mention often that cis people can be queer. Yup. To be really clear though, I like anyone can be queer because queer is a far left political ideology. I don't actually use the term cis. So I don't think it's actually correct to say that I mention often that cis people can be queer. What I have said often, to be very, very specific, is that literally anyone can be queer, because being queer is not about who you sleep with, and being queer is not about being trans. If the gender binary upholds capitalism, then why would some queer people identify within the binary? They don't. You are confused. What you believe is that queer people are gay or trans, and that is not correct. Being gay has nothing to do with being queer. Being trans has nothing to do with being queer. That is something that your guys made up, and that you're and I know you're conservative because I can tell based on your wording. That is something that your team made up. That is not actually reality. So this is a misperception on your part that I have said that queer people uphold gender. I have literally never said that, because one of the primary goals of queer is to abolish all gender categories. The people who are queer are non-binary. They are they, them. Sometimes they might say she, they, but they're still transitioning out to totally giving up the gender binary. So there might be a little transition period that often happens, but it is not true in any way that queer people identify within the binary. That is directly anathema to what they believe. You are also probably confused because you think that trans people are queer. If someone is transitioning from man to woman or woman to man, they are not queer. They are upholding the gender binary. A person can be trans and not be queer, because it has nothing to do with, are they doing this gender thing where they're transitioning? It has to do with, do they believe men and women are a real thing, or do they want to abolish gender? There are some queer people who identify as non-binary, who take hormones and they have the crazy hair and they look all sorts of crazy ways, and they call themselves trans, but they do not mean trans as in transition. They mean trans as in transform or transcend. Okay? So they're transforming the gender binary, they're transcending the gender binary. That is their actual language. So no, this is based on misperceptions that you have. I'm really glad you asked the question. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. But I just really need people to understand that this has to do with your misunderstanding based on the bullshit that's been fed out there in the conservative ecosystem. But I do appreciate you asking the question.
But they adopt the reproductive labor tasks typically assigned to Makanrai, roughly equivalent to women, and Orowane, roughly equivalent to men, which provides them with a different social class. More interestingly, however, are the Bisu, the fifth gender, which fills a role distinct from the other four. They fill special ceremonial religious practices and are said to be a mixture of the four other genders. Whereas Makanrai and Calabai take on typically feminine reproductive labor tasks, such as homemaking, and Orowane.
This part is all basically about, like, their argument is always, and you guys have probably heard them made this argument, their argument is always, non-binary people outside of the gender binary of men and women have always exist throughout history. And so we're going to go through some of the historical examples of non-binary people to demonstrate that non-binary is really our natural state. They literally believe that the gender categories of men and women are not the natural state of humanity, guys.
Whereas Makanrai and Calabai take on typically feminine reproductive labor tasks, such as homemaking, and Orowane and Kalalai take on typically masculine ones, such as providing support for their spouse. The Bisu transcend this and engage in their own tasks. The Bugi gender system shows how malleable gender... More interestingly...
Shit. Oh no. Okay, bro. No, I didn't misinterpret your question. Okay. Hey, Blem, please explain to us who wrote the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. Because right now, I just gave you, bro, I stopped the entire stream. Now I wasn't angry the first time. Now I'm getting fucking pissed. I stopped the entire stream to give you a very detailed and nuanced answer to your question, which is, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And I'm trying to very nicely correct you because you don't know what the fuck you are talking about. See, now you're actually getting the real answer here, bro. You want excuse me, you didn't give me the answer that I wanted, and so I'm going to accuse you of misinterpreting my question because I don't want to take responsibility for the fact that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I'm just here to own the libs, and I'm not actually interested in understanding what they mean because I just want to own the libs. Can you please just give me a way to own the libs and say that the libs are hypocrites? Because that's all I really care about. No, bro, I didn't misinterpret your question. You didn't listen to the answer. And so now my answer to you is going to be rewind the fucking video, listen again. If you still don't understand the answer I gave you, rewind the video again, listen again. And if you still don't understand it, just repeat that until you eventually understand. Or you also have the other option of literally sitting down, shutting the fuck up, listening to the document, and then maybe you might walk out of here more educated than you were when you entered. I didn't misinterpret your question, bro. You misunderstand the hierarchy on this channel. I am at the top, you are at the bottom. Always gonna be one, man. Always, every fucking time.
More interesting, the Bugey gender system shows how malleable gender can be, but also provides us with an excellent example of the material-based gender. The 5 genders of the Bugey are distinguished by how reproductive labor is divided among the Bugey people. Everything else is produced by this division. Our culture is different from theirs, but both are based upon the same sorts of divisions of reproductive labor. What produces gender is how these tasks are divvied up, and all else follows from this. This talk of material relations so often come down to naming capitalistic relations as the base of things.
The talk of material relations so often come down to naming capitalistic relations at the base of things, but this does not hold with gender. While gender and capitalism work together and are a part of the same social order, they do not share the same material base. This isn't to say the material base of gender has no relation to capitalism. Reproductive labor is required for producing new laborers for capitalistic production, and capitalistic production tends to define the exact nature of male reproductive labor. What they are saying here is gender and capitalism are not the same thing, but they are directly related to each other because capitalism needs to create the gender categories in order to continue to reproduce capitalism via the people with reproductive ability, the women, having children within the nuclear family, and then feeding those children into the capitalist mode of production as future or new laborers to support the capitalist system. That is what that says. Okay?
This talk of our culture is different from this talk of material relations so often come down to naming capitalistic relations as the base of things. But this does not hold with gender. While gender and capitalism work together and are a part of the same social order, they do not share the same material base. This isn't to say that the material base of gender has no relation to capitalism. Reproductive labor is required for producing new laborers for capitalistic production, and capitalistic production tends to define the exact nature of male reproductive labor. Sex and gender. Since gender is an expression of these relations of production and not a biology, where does that leave sex?
All right. Since gender is an expression of these relations of production and not of biology, they are extremely clear. Gender is a category created by capitalism via the relations of production based on reproductive ability. Gender has nothing to do with biology. Excuse me. What if we say fuck this? Okay, Albert. Okay. Do me a favor, Albert. You go find a radical revolutionary queer Marxist group in your area, and I promise you there's one in your area, whether you want to believe it or not. You go into a meeting with that group and you say, excuse me, I'm just here to say fuck your idea about reproduction. What do you think about that? And you see how that goes for you, Albert. You see if you change any minds. You see if you get anyone on your side. You see if they listen to you in any way. You see if you don't get your fucking ass kicked for being an asshole. You go ahead and give that a try and see how that works.
Since gender is an expression, sex and gender. Since gender is an expression of these relations of production and not a biology, where does that leave sex? Some pseudo-Marxists claim sex forms a material base of gender, but this is a laughable understanding of historical materialism, which centers biology before relations of production. Biology influences our reality, but our social systems find their basis in our material conditions. But sex is a thing, and if it isn't the basis of gender, what is it? Well, this formulation isn't wrong. Per se, it's merely backwards. Gender forms the basis of sex. We are not born with sex already within us. We have penises, vaginas, breasts, beards, chromosomes, etc. But these things are not sex on their own. They are features of our biology, but we group them into sexes.
All of these biological things, penises, vaginas, breasts, beard, chromosome, blah, blah, blah. These things are not biological sex. They're simply features of our biology. And then we create the categories that group those features into sexes. When we call penises boy parts, we are creating and imposing gender on the body. What they're saying is everyone just has different features of biology. And then we as human beings, via the capitalist social norms imposed on us, decided to create the categories of men to define some biological parts, and the categories of women to define other biological parts. And thus, we are already imposing gender norms on the body by creating the socially constructed categories of the different biological features of the body, when in fact we could just say, listen, different people do different things.
When we call penises boy parts, we are creating and imposing gender upon the body. What this means is that sex is a gendering of our biological features. We assign gender to our biology and claim them to be innate. This is used to present the gender class system as a natural thing that just exists rather than a social system that gets imposed upon us. By gendering our bodies, we act as if gender just is rather than it being something that we've created. As such, sex serves to reinforce and defend gender. Because sex isn't some inherent thing, but an element of gender superstructure. It has changed over time.
Sex isn't inherent. It is just part of gender's overall superstructure, and that's why sex has changed over time. They're saying sex is not biological. Gender's not biological. Sex isn't biological.
The earliest people could only have gendered the features that are plainly visible, such as genitals. It's only as our understanding of anatomy progressed that we were able to gender things like ovaries. Most recently, chromosomes have been gendered because of their relationship to features we've already gendered. But chromosomes haven't always been gendered. Half a century ago, no one would look at someone with breasts and a vagina and gender their bodies male, even if their chromosomes read XY. However, in 1986, the Spanish hurdler Maria Jose Martinez Patino failed a chromosome test in the 1986 Olympics, which led people to reject her as male-sexed. 3 years prior, she had passed a sex verification saying she was a female sex based on older methods. But because she is XY, she failed a chromosome test.
So what they're saying is the science was bad, but that was they're not saying the science was bad. They're saying her gender, the definition of gender and biological sex changed, and the proof of that is the science and how they test for these things changed. So obviously biology changed, so it's totally changeable. It's just a socially constructed, made-up category.
In previous epochs, no one would have questioned her body's womanhood. But thanks to the gendering of chromosomes, her body was deemed male, and she was shunned and shamed. Enforcement and sexual violence. Gender is the earliest class systems, and as a result, it precedes the state, even in its earliest.
Gender was created before the capitalist state. When we get into gender nihilism, people ask this question all the time. Karlyn, when do they believe that capitalism and all this stuff began? Well, Ancient Sumeria. I'm not making that up. They believe that both gender and capitalism, because gender became before capitalism, and these people are nihilists, and these are anti-civilizationists, and they believe that all this stuff started in ancient Sumeria. And when you get into the more nihilistic stuff, what you're going to realize is that the argument being made is that we need to abolish all civilization in order to abolish all oppression and all capitalism and all that stuff. Yeah, Leviathan, exactly.
Gender is the earliest class systems, and as a result, it precedes the state, even in its earliest, most basic form. This means that, unlike capitalism, race, neuronormativity, and the various other class systems, the state is not the primary means by which gender is imposed upon people. This isn't to say that the state doesn't impose gender, but it is supplementary, not primary. By the time states were cropping up, gender had already solidified itself and become quite adept at imposing itself upon others. So, if not the state, how is it imposed? Through sexual violence. When we look at statistics on the issues, what we find is that rates of sexual violence are higher among women than among men, and among queer people than among straight men. Some forms of sexual violence are higher among straight women than queer women, and some forms of sexual violence are higher among queer women than straight women. Trans people face higher rates of sexual violence than cis people of the same gender as them. This is saddening on its own, and the real cost upon the lives of those affected should not be ignored. This is a horrifying state of affairs, and this should not be diminished in any way. These higher rates of sexual violence are primarily against lower classes within the gender system. Straight, cis men are placed above women, and queer people and straight cis men are less likely to experience sexual violence than women or queer people, while women tend to have rates more similar to queer people. This shows that sexual violence is used primarily against those relegated to the lower class and those who are divergent from enforced gender norms. Sexual violence fills a role among women and queer people that police violence fills among many others. Indeed, while police violence does exist, it is quite frequently sexually charged when applied to women and queer people. Among queer people specifically, sexual violence is often done with explicitly correctional purposes. That is, sexual violence, particularly rape, is often used against queer people specifically to make them straight and cis. This is when the role of sexual violence is most explicit.
So they're literally arguing that the state uses sexual violence against queer people with the specific goal of making them adopt the gender binary. Because again, queer does not exist within the gender binary. You cannot be queer if you like, and before I even get the question, does the left understand what queer means? Yes, the left understands what queer means. It's the right that doesn't understand what queer means. The left understands what queer means. I promise you. There may be onesie and twosies of like gay rights activists from the 90s who don't get this, but by and large, the vast majority of the left understands this. And just because you can find a gay rights activist from the fucking 80s that doesn't understand this, that says, I'm gay or I'm queer because I'm gay or whatever, I don't give a fuck about the exceptions. I care about what the majority understand, and the majority do understand this. It's the right that does not understand it and does not want to accept it. Regardless, what they're arguing is that the state is imposing violence on queer people who do not adopt the gender binary via rape and other sexual violence, and they're doing this explicitly to try to force them into a binary category.
This is when the role of sexual violence is most explicit, but it is always for this purpose. Even when sexual violence isn't done for this explicit purpose, it always serves the purpose of enforcing the dominant gender system upon the victim. When it comes to sex workers, this can be especially pronounced, as sex workers are performing work that is illegal almost everywhere in the world. They are unable to properly report sexual violence against them to the police, and when they do, they're often jailed for engaging in sex work. This means that sexual violence done against them can be done unhampered by interference from the state in ways it is not possible among other groups. In addition, we find sex workers are more likely to be women or queer than straight cis men. This is not by mistake, but a specific venue for sexual violence against women and queer people where it can be done with impunity. the modern gender binary.
Yeah,
There
this
aren't any
is a really important point because I already see people in the chat trying to debunk this. Like, excuse me, don't they know that X, Y, B, and Z? Guys, as a reminder, we do not debunk on this channel. There is literally no debunk that you have in your arsenal that is going to make any difference at all. And every moment that you try to debunk these people is a moment that you are not learning what they believe. When you are just sitting, like, conservatives need to untrain themselves of this really atrocious habit they have to just try to hit everything they don't like with a debunk or an insult or to call someone a hypocrite. This is always the right wing reaction. Like, if they hear something they don't like, excuse me, don't they know this is factually wrong? Don't they know this is not the dictionary definition? Don't they know that that MacBook is capitalism? They're just hypocrites because they're engaging in capitalism. They're stupid. They're ugly. They're not mentally ill. Like that is always the conservative response when they encounter this type of material, whether it be an insult or a debunk or whatever. And that is why conservatives do not understand what they are fighting. The goal here is not to debunk them. You are literally going to convince no one with a debunk. The goal is to understand what they believe so that it can actually be confronted for what it is. Debunking is a waste of time and energy. What is actually true is of little relevance. What matters is what the left believes is true. Could determining sex at birth be considered state violence? Well, no, that's not what they believe. They don't believe that we should be determining any sex. They don't believe sex should exist. They believe all gender is oppression, all sex is oppression, all categories are oppression. They believe the existence of the categories in the first place is oppressive to everyone. We are trying to answer the question, what does the left believe? We're not here trying to answer how are they wrong. That's exactly right, average person. Well done.
There aren't any the modern gender binary. There aren't any current genderless societies, though there are many variations. All have created a division of reproductive labor, which has produced a gender system. Indeed, they've been around since at least the first civilizations developed the first writing systems.
The first civilization.
Gender is the first system of power developed by society. But these are systems, not a system, and the modern gender binary has been enforced on almost the whole world. Some different gender class systems still exist, but by and large, the advent of the liberal social order as a global social order rather than
the liberal social order. These are not liberals. These people do not like liberals. They are literally calling the gender system that they're trying to abolish the liberal social order. That is not because they like liberals or identify with liberals. They're trying to abolish their system because they do not like liberals.
But these are systems, not a system, and the modern gender binary has been enforced on almost the whole world. Some different gender class systems still exist, but by and large, the advent of the liberal social order as a global social order rather than a regional one has produced a single gender system which all other systems are seen as perversions of. Other gender systems today serve as holdouts within a larger global system. The modern system is a European one, but it's one that developed during and through colonialism. As Europeans expanded their power around the globe, they came into contact with various other gender systems, and rather than seeing difference, they saw a problem. They responded to it by enforcing their own gender system upon the various peoples they're invaded and colonized. But enforcing a gender system upon other groups like that...
As a reminder, when you hear the term colonization, that means stealing indigenous land and privatizing it under the oppressive force of capitalism. Colonization is specific to stealing, well, most of the time. Most of the time, colonization is specific to land, not all the time, actually. But like actual physical land. So you're stealing property from the indigenous people. The property used to be under the collective caretakership of the indigenous. It was not exclusive. It was not privately owned. When the land was stolen by the evil European colonizers, it was privatized under capitalism. That's how it became capitalist. Capitalist means privatized. That means some people were allowed on the land and other people were not allowed on the land. It was owned. Prior to colonization, it was not owned by anyone. It was for everyone's use and under everyone's caretakership. Okay, so that's what that means. Anytime you hear the word colonization in this context, it's about stealing the land and privatizing it under capitalism, thus creating a capitalist society.
But enforcing a gender system upon other groups like that necessarily transforms it. When a system like this is imposed upon another culture, it will lose some characteristics and gain others purely from a process of enforcement. Because the imperialists can't allow for the old system to persevere, they need to make their own system less flexible so that it can account for the old system, forcing people to find a place in the new. Religion also added new significance to it. While gender always had religious significance, the enforcement of the single gender system was done in service of and by religious institutions to a greater extent than it had before. Christian missionaries would force the European colonial gender system wherever they went, and they tied it closely to Christian religious morality. This contributed to the lack of
So religion, or Christianity specifically in this case, enforced the gender binary on everyone. So Christianity was one of the enforcers of capitalist social norms that upheld and created this new capitalist society.
This contributed to the lack of flexibility because it infused gender with religious zeal that had previously not played as large a part. And this enforcement came at the expense of the people it was enforced upon. Whereas previously, many First Nations peoples had third genders which were accepted within their societies and often held honored positions. People who today still identify with those third genders are oppressed and marginalized. This enforcement also served to destroy culture. Cultural practices tied to older gender systems were no longer able to be practiced, and European cultural practices got enforced upon them. European.
So when the land got colonized and stole from the indigenous people, they oppressed people so that they couldn't practice their traditional gender practices, which is basically, in this case, what they're talking about is like non-binary people being the spiritual leaders of society. I'm not making that up. They think that non-binary people were the spiritual leaders of all of indigenous society or some such bullshit. And so they're saying when the Europeans came over and stole the land, they made it so that we couldn't have our traditional gender norms where we had non-binary people being the spiritual leaders of society, because the Christian missionaries imposed the gender binary on them and made them give up that non-binary bullshit.
European. Christian marriages were spread across the globe alongside the gender system and would transform local marriage practices along the way. It was also transformed by the rise of capitalism. The pre-colonial gender system was tied strongly to economic systems dominant in Europe prior to the rise of capitalism. Marriage served as a means of securing alliances among the upper classes and as a means of stability among the lower classes. Gender was defined by the intrigues of court or the necessities of toil in the fields or in the cities. But with capitalism, we find it more and more tied to wage labor, and marriage transformed with it. The male part of reproductive labor was increasingly to labor for a capitalistic boss, and the female part to support his wage labor from home. This effect on the material base of gender caused it to transform, both in how the classes worked and in the characteristics of the superstructure. This new system has a few characteristics which define it. Not all of them developed at once, but they've been imposed upon the whole world. They are as follows. Exactly two genders recognized by the dominant power structure, man and woman.
Okay, I want everyone to pay attention to this. This is what they're calling the gender system that was imposed on people via colonization, okay? These are the attributes of the gender binary that they want to overthrow. They believe that everything that is in this list is an aspect of capitalism or has been socially constructed by capitalism, and in order to overthrow capitalist society, they need to get rid of everything in this list. So I need everyone to lock in and pay attention, okay?
Exactly two genders recognized by the dominant power structure, man and woman. Other genders are seen as perversion and are shunned and marginalized. These two genders are seen as identical to your biology and fixed from birth. While every gender system ties gender to biology, the modern system equates the two. Being a man in this system isn't tied to having a penis. It is having a penis. And this gender is immutable. You can't change it. If you're born as a man, you're seen as a man no matter what. There are no options or alternatives. Marriage is an economic contract between a man and a woman.
Okay, I want to make this clear. We've talked extensively about how queer Marxists never wanted gay marriage to be legalized. I'm going to say this again. The radical queer Marxist left never wanted gay marriage to be legalized. They were arguing against it. They were arguing against it before the Supreme Court case in 2015. They were arguing against it for years and years and years and years and years. It was the Democrats and the liberal and the normie gay rights activists that wanted gay marriage to be legalized. The radical revolutionary queer Marxists never wanted gay marriage to be legalized, and they still don't want it to be legalized. And overturning gay marriage is one of the stupidest mistakes that conservatives can make, because if you overturn gay marriage, it will lead to the destruction of gender and the nuclear family, because it will allow these people to say, we were right all along. We told you that this was going to happen. You didn't fucking listen to us because you just wanted your capitalist norms. You wanted to assimilate to capitalism by getting married, because according to them, marriage is an economic contract between a man and a woman. Marriage is a propertied relationship. It is an economic contract in which someone owns another person. They never wanted this to be legalized in the first place. Overturning it is one of the worst mistakes the conservative right would ever make. And if that ever happens, the left is going to win, because you are going to instantly recruit and radicalize so many people to the radical queer Marxist left that was always telling them this shit was going to happen in the first place. It will be impossible to defeat at that point if conservatives make that colossal error, because they do not understand what they are fighting. You're seeing them say in the document here, marriage is an economic contract between a man and a woman. Men and women are supposed to sign an agreement to be faithful and to stay together, and violation of that is seen as a breach of a contract and therefore bad. Marriage is a property relationship that upholds capitalism. And by the way, I know they're using man and woman there, so that's going to be confusing to some people. They mean the exact same thing of man and man and woman. They call it homonormativity.
Marriage is an economic contract between a man and a woman. Men and women are supposed to sign an agreement to be faithful and to stay together, in violation of that is seen as a breach of contract and therefore bad. Marriage is a personal choice done for love, rather than a social choice done for necessity. Gone are marriages for alliances or arranged marriages. For the most part, marriage is only a choice for the two who are getting married. In marriage, the man is expected to make money to support the woman, and the woman is expected to clean up the home, take care of the children, cook, and shop. Not all of these characteristics are unique to the modern system, and some of them are improvements on old systems, but they are imposed upon everyone, which destroys individual culture and choice.
Okay, before we get into the section on patriarchy, I want to make sure people understand what they mean by the term patriarchy. When capitalism created the socially constructed categories of men and women, they put men in the oppressor position, the people who could not have children because they went into the workplace where they had all the power and all the money and they were driving capitalism in that respect. Women, the people who could have children, were driving capitalism because they were doing the unpaid and oppressed reproductive labor in the home of having and raising the children with no compensation for what they're doing because, you know, they're being mothers and all that stuff. Those children are then fed into the capitalist system. So the socially constructed category of man drives capitalism by being the person in the workplace that had access to all the money, that was actually doing the functions of capitalism. The people that could have children were relegated to the home to have the children, and the children become the next generation of oppressed workers under capitalism. Both gender categories are driving the capitalist enterprise forward. They're reproducing capitalist society, but men, the socially constructed category of men is doing it in a different way than women. The patriarchy is the gender hierarchy. It's the idea that men have access to all the power and all the money, and that women are the oppressed ones in this relationship. And remember, both of these are socially constructed categories. They believe these are all made up. So the patriarchy is this made up hierarchy that was created out of the two socially constructed categories of gender, because capitalism always has an oppressor and always has an oppressed class. That is what the patriarchy is. Does everyone understand what we're talking about? The idea of undoing the patriarchy, the only way to do that, according to the queer Marxist left, is to abolish all gender. When you abolish the gender categories and everyone becomes a they, them, then everyone is equal.
Patriarchy, as has been referenced previously. Gender is a system of class and is one defined by the domination of manhood over society. This is why another name for the gender class system is patriarchy. Gender as a social system is patriarchy, and patriarchy is the social class system of gender. Within this class system, we find three distinct classes, two accepted and one subversive. First, we have men. When dividing reproductive labor, men are the ones who are tasked with controlling reproductive labor and the fruits of that labor, and with engaging in economic labor to support those who perform primarily reproductive labor. The exception to this is
men are in the workplace where they make money to support those doing the reproductive labor, the women in the home.
The exception to this is sexual relations where they engage with them directly, but they're expected to be dominant and in control. This serves as a material base for maleness. The superstructure is more expansive. We find men are assigned with taking action, with increasing strength, and with constant competitiveness. Given their control of reproductive labor and domination over women, this is the ruling class within patriarchy. Women, on the other hand, are the ruled. They are tasked with performing most reproductive action, with housekeeping, food preparation for the family,
Men,
child
women.
rearing, and other such tasks. They're also expected to engage in sexual relations, but have the relations controlled by the man. They have their labor controlled and confined by men, and have the fruits of that labor commanded by men. This is reflected in the superstructure around them. They're expected to be subservient and passive, to accept that which comes for them, etc. This class dynamic of man over woman is the principal dynamic of patriarchy, but they do not comprise the only two classes.
They just said it. The class dynamic of man over woman is the principal dynamic of patriarchy. That's what I explained to you. Men in the workplace where they have all the money, women in the home doing the unpaid reproductive labor. Men are over women. That is the patriarchy. The class dynamic of men over women is the principal dynamic of the patriarchy or the gender hierarchy.
Instead, we find that this class dynamic of man over woman is the principal dynamic of patriarchy, but they do not comprise the only two classes. Instead, we find that some people relate to reproductive labor differently than how it's imposed upon the population. This is especially the case with regards to sex, when someone engages in sexual relations that do not fit with the dynamics imposed by patriarchy. This includes people who are sexually attracted to people of the same gender, gay, lesbian people, of multiple genders, bisexual, pansexual people, or no gender, asexual people. In addition, people whose gender is different from the one patriarchy assigns to them can't be classed as neatly as people who accept the assignment by gender. While they might be personally men or women, they aren't treated by society in quite the same way, so they comprise a distinct social class. Characteristic to this is the
Non-binary?
detachment of sex and romance from reproducing the next generation. While it's still possible for all of these groups to reproduce the next generation, it is no longer a necessary part of sex and romance. Since this third class is defined by its difference from those of the first two classes, it is named queer.
Okay.
Queer people.
For people who for the genius who said that that people with a gender could be queer earlier, let's be very clear. Since this third class is defined by its difference from the first two classes, it is named queer. They are extremely explicit. So when I said there was no reality in which someone who identifies with a binary gender category could be queer, what I meant is all non-binary people who do not identify with the socially constructed categories of men and women are in a third class of category defined by the differences between the first two classes. They are queer. Does everyone understand this? Non-binary is queer. If you see someone saying they are a man or a woman, regardless of if that person is a cis person or a trans person. It doesn't fucking matter. If you see someone identifying as a man or as a woman and they are not identifying as non-binary, they are not queer. People who identify as part of the gender binary as either a man or a woman cannot be queer, because queer is defined as opposition to the gender binary. Those two things cannot exist at once. And this is why I told him to sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen, because I've read this document before and I know exactly what it has to say. And sometimes people need to be told to shut up and listen, because the answer is coming, but they have jumped the gun and they aren't fucking listening to the really concise answer you already gave them. And so now we can just hear the document actually say it. Does everyone understand this? This is really important, guys. You must, in order to understand queer Marxism, you must understand that non-binary is queer, trans is not queer, gay is not queer. Trans, as in transition, upholds the gender binary because you're transitioning from a man to woman or woman to man. If you are gay, you are identifying as a man, that upholds the gender binary. If you are a lesbian, you are identifying as a woman, that upholds the gender binary. All of these categories uphold the gender binary. Okay, well, what is your fucking damage, Ben? Because I don't know how much more clear I can be about this. Please craft a question that articulates your misunderstanding so that we can help you, because it's not going to get easier than this, bro. This is as entry level, kindergarten level as I can get you. So queer is an ideology that wants to abolish all gender. If you believe that men and women are a real thing and that there are two categories and only two categories, and you identify as one or the other, then you are not queer. You cannot be queer. Queer is a third class defined by its differences to the first two classes. It says so in the document. Exactly. Caitlyn Jenner is not queer. Blair White is not queer. Michael, you've been trying to make this about race the entire stream. Please stop. This is not about race. Is gender white supremacy? Yes, they would be the same fucking thing. But that's actually not what we're talking about, and we have a limited amount of time today, and I find it to be really confusing to interject other topics that are not relevant to what is being discussed. So please cut it out. You've already been asked to cut it out once. Please cut it out. Deets, thanks so much for the channel membership. W's to Deets for the channel membership, getting us up to 30. Guys, we are but 20 channel memberships away from our abbreviated goal today. We will be going into Spy Stream soon, guys. We don't have much longer to meet this channel goal and bring 50 new members into Spy Stream with us. Can we get on the channel membership goal if I'm teaching you guys something today? Will you please support the channel by getting us to our goal? That would be rad. Let's keep going. We'll go as long as we can.
Queer people are all, since this third class is defined by its difference from those of the first two classes, it is named queer. Queer people are all those who relate differently to the division of reproductive labor assigned to them by patriarchy. Because of the different relations, queer people are inherently subversive to the class system as a whole and constitute the revolutionary class under patriarchy. This queerness is a particular characteristic of the modern gender system. Other gender systems do not have the same class system and thus have different categories for people. Indeed, in places where older gender systems have been maintained, it isn't accurate to default to talking about queerness. Many people who identify with genders from older gender systems are queer by virtue of the modern gender system being imposed upon them. But many of them aren't because of the complexities of being in communities with those genders. Saying yes to gender, class, class, class. We are dominated and controlled, sorted and divided.
Thanks, average
But where do
person.
we factor into
W's.
all this? People see class like this as merely imposed, but that fails to account for the ways we actually interact with it. It isn't simply imposed upon us. We are active participants within it. We perform it. Here we can listen to the analysis of Judith Butler. Performative act.
We are not a biological gender. We perform our gender. Our gender is not innate. It is a performance, as though we are in the theater. Bro, do not fucking argue with me again. I've already given you enough on this channel and on this particular stream. And I did not okay, you know what? In fact, you're getting put in a 5-minute timeout. I didn't misinterpret shit. You're the one that didn't listen. Seriously, we've wasted enough time on you, bro. Either listen or don't. W's in the chat for Cynthia. Really appreciate the channel memberships. Cynthia the goddess getting us almost the way there. Guys, we have 13 more. 13 more before the end of the stream. If I'm teaching you stuff in between yelling at the retards, please contribute. Would appreciate it.
Here we can listen to the analysis of Judith Butler. Performative acts, that is, all the little actions you take which construct an identity, are key to understanding how gender functions on an individual level. We find these in the most basic things we do and say, I am a woman. No, I can't play with that. It's a boy toy. Boys will be boys. These acts produce an identity, both within ourselves and within others.
Okay, I just want to say to the Blum guy, okay, I misread your chat. I went back and read it. I'm gonna unhide you from a timeout, whatever. But like, bro, listen. I need you to just be listening more on the channel and to be like relaxing. I know how to teach this shit, but like the back talk is not something I appreciate, and telling me I misinterpret something is not something I appreciate at all when it's not true. W's in the chat to Cynthia with 5 more gifted channel memberships. Thank you so much, Cynthia. 42 guys. You guys gonna let Cynthia do all the work?
You identify as a woman or a man, and identify others as men or women by engaging in these acts. This is hardly done freely. The violence of the system is inherent and systemic. We perform these acts surrounded by the violence of gender, but we still perform them. Gender isn't content with forcing itself upon us. Instead, it forces us to say yes to it. This serves as a method of control and reproduction. Gender isn't inherent, but it spreads by assigning us to a class and forcing us to say yes to that class. Yes, I am a man. It is who I am and who I
Gender assigns us a class. Gender isn't inherent, but it spreads by assigning us a class and forcing us to say yes to that class.
It is who I am and who I always have been. I cannot escape it or deny it. I am a man. This is nothing but a lie we are forced to repeat. But by repeating it enough, we come to believe it. Gender becomes natural, inescapable, eternal. It ceases to be an imposed identity and becomes an eternal part of who we are. By objecting to my gender, you are objecting to that which is inherently me. Here lies one of gender's greatest defense mechanisms. Ourselves. We insist upon it and reject those who turn away from it. It becomes an unholy act for those who turn from the path. Indeed, it seems to us as if there's no other option. We say yes because that's all we can say. It is made inconceivable that it could be any other way. Communism, the communist movement. But now we must speak of communism to understand how gender relates to the rest of society. For that, we must know what communism is. We call communism the real movement, which abolishes the present state of things. The conditions of this movement result from the premises now in existence. Karl Marx, the German ideology, communism conceived in this way, is a movement against the present social order, one seeking the liberation of those oppressed. This should not be seen as an ideal we strive for, but a real, active movement that exists in the present day. We don't find communism in plans for the future, but rather in a worker sabotaging his workplace, a wife who escapes from her abusive husband with her children, Naxalites engaging in guerrilla warfare against the Indian government, rioters rejecting the police to loot and burn their cities, etc. Within the communist movement, we find all the important work being done in the present day. The communist movement isn't about some far-off ideal, but the immediate communism produces. It's an active revolt against the present state of things, which is communizing society immediately. Not some theorist in a university considering the world from his armchair. It simply states the present state of things must go, and then takes action to make it so. But this state of things should not and cannot be conceived of as only one system of class or one element of society we live in. The present state of things is not capitalism or gender or race or the state. Rather, it is the totality of liberal society and every system contained therein.
So capitalism is not just one thing. It is the totality of liberal society and every single thing within it. This is why when people say that capitalism is like abolishing, or excuse me, this is why people say when abolishing capitalism is about seizing the means of production. That's not entirely true. The means of production are just one aspect of this. It's not the entire aspect of this. It's one aspect of this. Yo, Hans, W's in the chat for Hans, getting us over the channel membership goal for today. We really appreciate it, Hans. Congrats to everyone who got a new channel membership. And listen, guys, we do still have a little time left here, so there is still time to send in some channel memberships, invite some more people over to Spy Stream tonight. That would be rad.
Rather, it is the totality of liberal society and every system contained therein. As such, the communist movement finds itself in stark contrast with liberalism and gives us a counterpoint to the failed analysis and politics of liberalism. Liberal analyses reduce oppression to a number of separate but intersecting systems of oppression. This renders the fights against them as separate but allied. There's an anti-racist movement, a feminist movement, an economic justice movement, etc. But these are only allies, not the same movement. This forms a liberal conception of intersectionality. This liberal version of intersectionality presents systems that can be domineering among the oppressed or passive among the privileged. Thus, a white gay man only ever truly experiences anti-queer oppression, and all other systems are silent to him. In truth, oppressive systems are more than that. There is no one untouched by the domination of class systems within liberal society. Everyone, from the most powerful capitalist to the lowliest worker, from the domineering patriarch to the uncertain young trans woman, from the controlling asylum administrator to the schizophrenic force-fed medication, from the white gentrifier to a black family pushed out of their family apartment, all experience the control of these systems. No one is left untouched. Rather than being systems of passive control, they are...
Okay, hang on. Tigers, you seem to be confused about what we're doing here. This is not your time to pontificate. This is a time to read a document and learn. So your opinions here honestly don't matter. I do not want you distracting the chat. We are here to read this document, not to listen to you.
Rather than being systems of passive control, they are an active totalitarian whole, a totality. This totality encompasses every part of society, dominates every member of society, and alienates everyone and everything contained within. It is inescapable and domineering. Totality is where communist analysis, rather than liberal analysis, must lead us. We find similar problems in liberal conceptions of identity politics, which see oppression as done to specific identities over classes.
Okay, I need everyone to understand this. We find similar problems in liberal conception of identity politics, which sees oppression as done to specific identities over classes. Queer Marxists reject identity politics. Queer Marxists are not the ones doing identity politics. The ones doing identity politics are Democrats and liberals. These are two very different groups. Queer Marxists reject identity politics because queer Marxists reject all identity categories. They believe that all identity is a manifestation of capitalism, a socially constructed concept created by capitalism, and that is what they believe, okay? So everyone understand the difference. Democrats and liberals are doing identity politics. Queer Marxists are anti-identity politics because queer Marxists are anti-identity. Queer Marxists do not like Democrats. They do not like liberals. They are not on the same team. They are not useful idiots for them. They're not doing anything together. They do not work together. They do not like together. They do not play together in the same fucking playground. They are not the same. They are two different things.
We find similar problems in liberal conceptions of identity politics, which see oppression as done to specific identities over classes. This renders the identity as the base rather than the superstructure. What this means is that the liberal conception of liberation is respecting your identity and treating your identity fairly. But even if we do this, our identities would still oppress us because it fails to address the underlying conditions that cause them. To them, stripping away the domination of the specific system of oppression we experience renders us free from it, becoming equal with those with privileges. but this leaves the totality untouched.
Even if we do this, our identities would still oppress us because it fails to address the underlying conditions that cause them. They believe capitalism creates all identity categories. As long as identity categories exist, they will be oppressive because they are failing to overthrow capitalism. Liberals are failing to overthrow capitalism. Democrats are failing to overthrow capitalism. To them, stripping the domination of a specific system of oppression we experience renders us free from it, becoming equal with those privileges, but this leaves the totality untouched. As long as capitalism as a system exists, as a social and a cultural model, then the identities will persist and the oppression will persist. The only way to get rid of the oppression is to get rid of the identities. The only way to get rid of the identities is to get rid of capitalism.
But this leaves the totality untouched. Liberal politics is ultimately one of reformism, not revolution or abolition. Communist politics provides us with a path forward through abolitionism, not reformism. Gender can't be reformed to free us. It must be abolished.
So this is really important. Oh, we got Jump the Shark with a gifted channel membership. Thanks so much, bro. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Guys, this is important, and I think we may have to leave the rest of this for another day. I apologize for the part 2. We still got a little bit to go here, though. There's still a whole bunch to go. I thought we were going to be able to get through this quicker than we did, but maybe we'll do a little bit of a part 2 on this. But I just want to point out before we conclude the first half of the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto, this last paragraph here is really important. Liberal politics is ultimately one of reformism, not revolution or abolition. Communist politics provides us with a path forward through abolitionism, not reformism. Gender can't be reformed to free us. It must be abolished. They could not be more clear, guys. They're not liberals. They believe liberals are the enemy. Liberals are the reformists that want to uphold capitalism and make small little tiny changes that still leave the oppressive system of capitalism in place. Liberals are not in favor of revolution. Liberals are not in favor of abolition. Communist politics to queer Marxists and gender abolitionists is the only path forward because revolutionary communist politics, not reformism like the DSA, we're talking about the farthest left here. Revolutionary politics is the only path to abolition of gender and, quite frankly, everything else, not just reformism. Gender can't be reformed. It must be abolished. They could not be more clear about their goals. Okay? So that is going to be the first half of the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. We will have to do part 2 on another day. Maybe not tomorrow, but like maybe in just another day. Maybe we'll do it on Monday. That might be good. But if you guys appreciated that, again, you can actually like read this document on your own. It is available in the Anarchist Library. It is the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto by Vicky Storm and Emmy Flores. I do have the link in the chat. I will put it in the chat again. This is one of the foundational documents that you must understand in order to understand the militant queer Marxist left. I think we got about halfway through the document today. Yeah, we did. We actually got about halfway through it, so we can do the other half another day. And that is what we will do. So and I will also upload this to the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club section of the podcast so that you guys can find the recording there. Again, the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club, if you go over to my Substack, that is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Click on Book Club. You will find the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club, which is actually its own podcast. You can subscribe to the podcast on Substack. You can subscribe to it on Apple and Spotify. I'm going to try to be doing more of these. Wanted to chat if you guys liked this little peek into the most dystopian queer gender propaganda that exists. Do you guys like this? One in the chat if you like this, two in the chat if you think this sucks. Thank you, James. Would I be oversimplifying by saying queer versus liberal conception is like domesticated versus undomesticated? I don't know how you're defining domesticated versus undomesticated, so that would be difficult for me to say. In general, I'm not really in favor of that. I think we just need to be explicit, like these are two very, very, very different groups. And anyone grouping these two together is just not, they're not hinging into reality. But I would have to know more about your definitions of those terms. We can't continue that today because we got to go to Spy Stream, ladies and gentlemen. We are now going to head into Spy Stream. Spy Stream is going to be a supporter exclusive tonight. We are going to be doing this for supporters on the Substack, the Locals, Patreon, and also Twitter subscribers, and of course, YouTube channel members. If you are a member on the Substack, you can find the link over on the Substack. If you're a supporter on any of those other platforms, you can find the link over there. Rumble, I'm going to need you guys to stay put. It will be up on the Rumble channel for you guys. And if you are on the YouTube channel and you're like, Karlyn, how the fuck do we find our Spy Stream? Well, what you do is you go to the post tab, go to my channel go to my channel homepage. Okay. All right. See, we always have to have one conservative retard at the very end. Bye, asshole. Banned from the channel. Not smart enough to be here. Go away. Anyway, go to my channel homepage, click on the post tab. And when you are a YouTube channel member, the very first post under the post tab will be a link to Spy Stream for tonight. We're going to be going inside 2 leftist organizing calls. We're going to be watching those organizing calls live. I do hope you will come and join us. There are going to be 2 good ones tonight, I think. They're going to be talking about the general strike on May 1st, and the other call is going to be talking about the No Kings protest, which, of course, is going to be hyper relevant to us. So, guys, we're going to shut down this stream. I'm going to do it real quick. We're going to start up our Spy Stream on the other side, and I will see you guys. I will see you guys over there for Spy Stream. Thank you to everyone who gave gifted channel memberships today. Looks like we came out with 53 of our goal of 50. Really do appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and I will see you guys in Spy Stream.